All right, welcome back to the deep dive.
Today we're strapping in, getting ready for a bit of a wild ride through the world of cybersecurity careers.
We've gotten our hands on the complete guide for cybersecurity career English.
And, let me tell you,
This thing is packed.
with some serious insights.
And trust me.
It's a big world out there.
Yeah.
What's really cool is how many different paths you can take in cybersecurity, each one calling for its own unique set of skills and know-how.
Absolutely. And that's why we're here to help break it all down. We're giving you, the listener, a clear understanding of what it takes to not just survive, but thrive in this awesome field.
One of the things that jumped out at me in this guide is the emphasis on something they call pillars of security.
Okay, now you've lost me.
What are these pillars?
Sounds like we need to summon some ancient wisdom or something before we even think about writing code.
Well, you're not wrong to think outside the box, or outside the code in this case.
Okay.
What's interesting here is that these pillars of security are really about getting a well-rounded view of the whole cybersecurity landscape.
It's about understanding things like GDPR.
That's the General Data Protection Regulation, which basically sets the rules for data privacy.
Right.
And then there are frameworks like IT 27000-1, which is all about the best practices for managing information security.
Okay, so we're talking regulations, we're talking frameworks. This is starting to sound kind of legalish.
It's not just about being a coding whiz, right?
We're talking about knowing how to protect a business from every angle.
Exactly. Cybersecurity is all about protecting the business, and to do that well, you need to understand not just the techie stuff, but the legal and regulatory side of things too. You got to know the threats, the strategies to counter those threats.
Yeah.
It's strategic thinking,
Cool.
almost like a game of chess.
Intense. And this guide, it doesn't mess around either.
It gets straight to the point, almost like a military field manual.
Listen up, recruit.
Yeah.
Here's how you survive in the digital trenches.
You're right. It's very direct.
And speaking of different approaches, this guide goes deep into this really cool concept of the blue team and the red team.
Ooh, here's where it gets interesting.
So we get to pick sides, huh?
Well, it's not quite as simple as choosing teams for a pickup game.
But yeah, there are definitely some similarities.
Basically, it comes down to whether you see yourself as more of a defender or an attacker.
Are you all about building those strong defenses, shoring things up?
Yeah?
Or do you like to poke around for weaknesses, see how you can exploit vulnerabilities?
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
We got to dig into this whole blue team, red team showdown.
Listen up, everyone. It's about to get competitive. Which side are you on?
Okay, so we've got our blue team and our red team facing off in the digital world.
But what are these cybersecurity gladiators actually doing?
Let's start with those defenders, the noble blue team.
The guide uses this phrase, knowing solutions.
And it's actually a really good way to sum up their role.
Okay.
They're the ones on the front lines, actively defending against attacks in real time.
Think of them as the master architects and engineers, but instead of buildings, they're building a digital fortress.
So what kind of tools are we talking about here?
I'm picturing like virtual shields and moats.
Not quite, but you're getting the idea.
They work with things like firewalls.
Those are like barriers between networks controlling what comes in and what goes out.
Right.
And then there are SOMs.
TMs.
That stands for Security Information and Event Management.
Okay, 375 certifications suddenly doesn't seem like enough.
Break that one down for me.
Basically, a SIEM is like a giant security logbook.
What?
It collects data from all over the place and then analyzes it to see if anything fishy is going on.
Right.
And they use DLT systems.
DLP.
That's data loss prevention.
It's all about making sure that sensitive information doesn't end up in the wrong hands.
Right, so it's about building a whole defense system.
It's all about layers of defense. Each tool has its own job to do.
Okay, so it's not just about building a wall, it's about having a whole security system in place.
Exactly.
But what about the red team, the attackers? What kind of knowing solutions do they need?
No, the red team, they're a different breed.
They have to get inside the mind of the enemy, you know.
Yeah.
They're always looking for weak spots.
Trying to figure out how a real attacker might exploit those weaknesses.
Right.
This guide really emphasizes the importance of understanding frameworks like Mighty A, ATT, and CK.
Okay, ITT Tech, ATT, and CK.
I feel like we're getting into the weeds a little bit here.
It's a gold mine, really.
It's this incredible knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques, all based on real-world observations. Red teams use this to really understand how attackers operate.
They can actually simulate attacks. It's almost like running a fire drill, but for cybersecurity.
Right?
And then there's the cyber kill chain.
It breaks down a cyber attack into different stages.
Okay.
So the red team can look at each step and try to find vulnerabilities.
So the blue team's busy building the defenses.
And the red team is running these attack simulations.
Trying to find the holes, the weak points.
Exactly.
It's like a constant game of cat and mouse.
That's what keeps it so interesting.
Both sides have to stay one step ahead.
Yeah.
You know, that reminds me of something.
Okay, before we get lost in the weeds of attack simulations, you were about to share a story about the blue team and red team dynamic.
Oh, yeah. This happened a while back. I was consulting for this company, and they had a seriously impressive blue team.
They had built this amazing security infrastructure, like Fort Knox, but digital. But then they brought in a red team to do a simulated attack, and, well, things got interesting.
I bet they did. What happened?
The red team, in just a few days, they managed to completely bypass this super expensive firewall.
No way.
And it wasn't even some crazy brute force hack. They socially engineered an employee to give up their login credentials.
Oh, wow.
It just goes to show sometimes the weakest link really is the human element.
Even with all that fancy tech in place.
Exactly. And it highlighted that cybersecurity isn't just about the tech.
Right.
It's about people. It's about processes. It's about understanding how attackers think.
Right. It's like that whole, it takes one to know one thing, but for the digital world.
Exactly. You need cybersecurity professionals who can bridge those gaps between the technology, human behavior, the legal frameworks, everything. That's where the real value is.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of covering all the bases, this guide, as comprehensive as it is, it even acknowledges that it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
I love how it encourages further exploration, you know, with those links to mind maps and roadmaps, all those extra resources.
Absolutely. Continuous learning, it's not optional in this field.
Yeah.
It actually specifically recommends the IT guide by Jamie Lynn Harris.
Okay.
Definitely worth a look.
Adding that to the list, it seems like every road in cybersecurity leads to like a million more resources and certifications.
In fact, the guide mentions a security certified roadmap with over 375 certifications.
375. Where do you even begin?
It can definitely be overwhelming.
But I think it speaks to how incredibly wide-ranging this field is, you know? Yeah. You've got your entry-level certifications to get that foundational knowledge, but then you've got your hyper-specialized ones for specific technologies or, you know, very specific niches within cybersecurity.
Right. And then there are those platforms like Hack the Box and VulnHub that the guide talks about. Those sound kind of intense.
They're like playgrounds, but for cybersecurity folks.
You know, it's a safe and legal way to practice hacking skills, solve challenges, even go head-to-head with others in the community.
It's like having your own virtual cybersecurity training montage, but instead of cheesy music, you've got lines of codes scrolling across the screen.
You know, for all the technical stuff we've talked about, there was this one detail in the red team section that really caught my eye.
It mentioned the importance of synergy with other areas.
Okay.
So that got me thinking. What other fields, in your opinion, would be surprisingly valuable assets to have in cybersecurity?
It's funny you should ask that.
We tend to think of cybersecurity as this purely technical field, right?
Yeah.
But it actually overlaps with so many other disciplines.
Okay.
Psychology, for example. That's huge for understanding why attackers do what they do and how they do it. And then there's law, ethics.
These are all things that come into play when you're dealing with data breaches and privacy concerns, and especially the legal fallout from a cyber attack.
Right. You've got to know what you can and can't do, legally speaking.
Absolutely.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into cybersecurity careers, what's the one nugget of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with today?
You know, cybersecurity is a journey.
It's all about continuous learning.
Embrace the challenge, stay curious, and never stop exploring.
I love it.
This field is constantly evolving, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Fantastic advice.
So whether you're drawn to the defensive side with the blue team, or you're ready to embrace those offensive tactics with the red team, there's definitely a place for you in this amazing world of cybersecurity. Until next time, everyone, happy learning.